I don't know why, they really phased the Demolition out too. That was, I don't know, Bill, what are your thoughts? Why,
Well,
why did they do that? Was it because they didn't want the Road Warriors and the Demolition there at the same time, or you know what I
well, I
mean?
think that's a little bit of it, but I think that they really made a mistake, and it was. I don't think it was anything against us. When I look back, uh, Vince wasn't happy with Hogan. He wanted to replace Hogan. He wanted to replace Warrior. He wanted to replace Stone Cold. He wanted to replace Savage. He wanted, it's like ride the horse until it drops, and then we get a new horse.
Yeah.
But you know, you can't take anything personal in this business. There's a window of opportunity. Take advantage of that window and just move on. And like Barry and I talk about it all the time. There's life after wrestling. There's life after WWE, and now we're back in WWE. So who would have thunk it?
Exactly. And also it's interesting because in this day and age with how kind of matches are booked, I'm positive that you would have seen Road Warriors versus Demolition, because we've got used to, big name versus big name, but that wasn't really the model back then, was it? There was so much more of this kind of the squash matches and all that kind of thing. Do you think that there was the characters were just too close to possibly have Demolition and Road Warriors together?
I don't think so. I think that there was a lot of people that, like I always have said, there's some Demolition fans, there's Road Warrior fans, there's Powers of Pain fans, yeah. And there's a lot of damn people that don't give a shit about either team. So I think that they missed the opportunity, and Barry and I have talked about this a number of times. They missed the opportunity because when we come out, I remember the first time in Cleveland, when we come out and the people start cheering us, they weren't really cheering us because they liked us. They were cheering us because they liked what we were doing. Well, somebody in the office says, well, they like these guys. They're cheering them. So they have to make a turn. Well, they didn't. And then again, the Road Warriors come in, and against us, they could have had us separated for a year and had a pay-per-view out of it. Mm-hmm. But they jumped the gun. So sometimes the people in the office don't make all the right match makeups.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think when the Road Warriors came in, I think they thought that when they come in and introduce them, that there was going to be the biggest pop ever. Well, they were from the Southern Territory, and we were, embedded in the WWE, and those fans liked us. So there wasn't the reaction that the office really wanted. And then they put these goofy masks on us. They did everything to almost make us look bad, to make them look better, to make us heels. But it didn't work. And like Bill said, if they would have just not even put us together, never, not for a year or 2 years, and then do it, then it would have really meant something. Then you would have really had a heel team and a babyface team, and it would have exploded. But they jumped the gun on everything, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
Did you ever get a chance to talk to Hawk and Animal about it at the time that you were working together?
Well, we were friends. Barry was much closer than I was because he grew up with him and he had known him for years. But I had known him for a number of years when they first came into Georgia. There was no animosity between the teams. I think they were just as confused of what was going on because they had made them some promises too that they didn't live up to. And if you remember, they left and they weren't happy. So it wasn't just against us or any particular team. There was a lot of times and a lot of individuals that were promised a lot of different things that were not fulfilled.
Yeah. I think it's the kind of turbulent nature of that time, isn't it? In the early 90s, there were so many people that came in and moved on, as you said, from the Ultimate Warrior to Hogan leaving to Davey Boy Smith to Road Warriors to yourself. There was a lot of change in a very short period of time in the WWF.
Well, and it all depended on one person's choice at that time.
Yeah.
But I think, it probably still is one person's choice now, but that individual is a little more understanding. And I think he looks at it differently and how it's going to benefit. The other one was sort of a dictator.
Yeah.
I think the difference is too is Triple H was a wrestler.
Mm.
He started off, you know, in a boxing ring in the middle of nowhere, you know, getting beat up and worked his way up the ranks. So now he's in the office knowing really what the wrestlers do. Where Vince was never went through that and actually didn't really like wrestlers. He you know, the office and everybody else was more important than the wrestlers. Where I think, you know, Triple H kind of looks at it the other way. I need the wrestlers to make the organization. And then the office, you know, is in charge of those wrestlers. You know, it's a whole different ball game, I think, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. It's that kind of, there was always that kind of thing about sports entertainment versus wrestling, and almost like this desire always to downplay the wrestling element, wasn't there? It felt for a longest time, like, don't talk about wrestling, it's all about entertainment. And it feels like we're getting much, but obviously with the UFC merger as well, and that legitimacy of professional wrestling as a sport and an art form in and of itself feels like that's much stronger now than it's been in a long time.